hello everyone. Oh, let me get my... Okay. We're doing something a bit different today. So, hello everyone. It's good to be doing a tea time live stream again. Let me go ahead and go to my channel on my phone so I can see your guys' comments. Let's see here. And we'll mute that. Hello, Five Caps Films. Hello, Kimmy Bear. Hello, Arnaud. We're starting early today because we're like 3 or 4 minutes early. Frankly, because I was ready to go. So, I'm like, why wait, But yeah, so we're doing something a bit different today. Normally when I do these tea time live streams, I'm actually drinking tea and I'm using the Queen Mary tea set. But I still had a whole mug of coffee that I hadn't finished. And I don't feel like having tea today because after the tea time stream is done, then I have to do all the dishes. And I just finished doing dishes. So I'm like, I just don't feel like doing tea today, especially when I got my coffee right here and I haven't even finished it yet. So, but that doesn't mean we can't hang out. So, all right, who else do we got here? Ozzy says, does Alex have any snow today? No. It's not cold enough yet in the season for snow. Oh, by the way, folks, let me know if you can see and hear me okay. I just want to make sure. In fact, I can turn up thing. Yeah, my stream says... I'm listening to it right now, so I can hear it. Yeah. So, the weather. It's not cold enough here yet for snow, but we will be getting, I think, either tomorrow night or the day after, we're supposed to have the lows dip down to about 36 degrees Fahrenheit, but that's still not cold enough for snow. So, yeah, we haven't gotten any snow yet. From what I understand about what the weather meteorologists have been saying is that we probably won't be getting any snow until late December. They're literally saying Christmas, which is funny because when we do get snow in this particular area, it usually happens around Christmas. We usually get it a day before or on the day of Christmas. And then it's only been a few times afterward that we've gotten snow, like in January or February. February, we get the brunt of most of the ice and snow. So if it does snow at all in the season, it'll mostly happen at the beginning of February. February. Yeah. Everyone can hear me just fine. That's good. Hello, Sarah. I'll be getting ready to go to my support group in half an hour while I listen. Nice. Let's see. Five Cat Film says, here in Los Angeles, it's raining and it's going to for a few more days, thankfully. Yeah, I heard that Southern California is going to be getting a big atmospheric river, which is supposed to bring some pretty heavy rain to the area. And when it comes to the Queen Mary, I'm thankful that the Queen Mary's been getting a lot of paint work done recently, because that'll help protect the ship from all that rain. But I believe that the rain will also cause issues with landslides and things like that, because that's what they were saying on the news today. Dino says, hey there from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's 80s and sunny here. Oh my. Yeah, I don't like the warm weather or the sun. Thankfully, I think right now it's about 50 some odd degrees here. It's nice and cold. It's good weather for tea and coffee, that's for sure. Good weather for that. It's also good weather to go on a hike or something, because You know, you expel all that energy, but, you know, it's not blisteringly hot or anything. So it's good weather for all of that. Sarah says, usually in the Pacific Northwest, it's not until Christmas at least. Yeah, we don't get snow until at least Christmas. But usually we wait longer. Usually we wait until January or February. Yeah. Ozzy says, we're getting rain off and on here in Fort Mojave. Oh yeah, I bet. Will says, hello, setting up my O-Gauge Christmas layout today. Awesome. Yeah, I was just, I was doing a live stream. I was doing a live stream of the, I'm trying to think. I was doing a live stream of my train layout just yesterday on my other channel, Alex the Railroader. I believe there's a link in the description below if you guys want to follow that channel. But I've switched over all stuff about my model railroad to that channel. That's my original channel, actually. It's a bit older than this one. And all my model railroad stuff from now on will be on that channel, because on this channel there just isn't a big audience for all the model railroad stuff. And I feel like I could get a bigger audience for that on a completely different channel. So, but yeah, feel free to subscribe to that channel, Alex the Railroader. And I'll be doing updates on there. I'll be playing railroad games. I'll be showing off the train layout on live streams, stuff like that. But I did a live stream just yesterday, so yeah. Five Caps Film says, Alex, a while back you mentioned every time you do a stream you lose 1 subscriber. Does that still happen? Yes. Yeah, it does. It's consistent. I lose at least 1 subscriber per live stream. I don't know why exactly. I have this theory, and I know you guys are going to say I'm crazy, okay? I have this theory. You see, I used to do videos where I was just like this in front of a camera, and I would talk about history, right? I would talk about maybe Disneyland history or ocean liner history, and I'd be face-to-face in front of a camera, and then once in a while I'd show pictures or old footage of whatever I'm talking about. And you guys probably remember some of those videos. I had to stop doing them, because every time I did one of those videos, I would lose like 20, 30 subscribers at a time. That's not much in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I get a lot more subscribers, per week than losing just 30 subscribers doing one of those videos. But nevertheless, it was concerning. It's like, why were all these people unsubscribing? And I noticed that the majority of people who unsubscribe from my channel do it on any video where my face is on the camera, right? Like where you can see my face, whether it's a live stream or it's like a video itself. If my face is on the camera, I lose subscribers. And so my theory is, it's because I'm not particularly what you would call traditionally attractive. I'm this fat guy who's talking in front of a camera. And I know that sounds so crazy, because I know there's a lot of YouTubers who are fat, who are super popular. There's some that are really, really popular. But that's my thing, because that's the only thing I can think of is every time my face is on camera, I lose subscribers. So I find it more funny than anything, honestly. It's not like I'm all sitting here weeping and crying, oh, I'm so ugly. I think it's funny. I'm kind of like, geez, every time my mug is on the screen, I lose subscribers. So that's my little theory there. Dino says, I'm at the pool, but in the shade, and the pool is very nice to help stay cool. Nice. Yeah, we don't have much of, there aren't a lot of swimming pools up here in the Pacific Northwest. Like, if you go to Southern California, almost everybody has some kind of a swimming pool. Even if it's one of those plastic toy pools, so everybody's got one. But up here, you don't really see that. And even during summertime, summertime is when everybody's using pools. So my apartment complex has a pool, and summertime is its busiest time. No one goes at this time of year. The pool is always empty. because it's cold. It's freezing cold outside. But yeah, drawing room, synagogue will open the same. Wait. Arnaud says, question, will the long gallery, drawing room, and synagogue open at the same time? No. No, certainly not. Because the drawing room is the only one of those three things that's currently underway. So, the, what was the other two? The synagogue and the long gallery currently haven't started yet. The synagogue was emptied out early this year. But I don't think right this minute there is actively restoration going on in that room. The long gallery for sure is not currently underway because they, part of the long gallery, one of the rooms that they've divided it into is a Starbucks, and the Starbucks is still open, from what I understand. So we won't see the long gallery restored or the work begin until that Starbucks closes and they close those rooms up and we can't see inside through the windows. But the drawing room is definitely underway. I just saw a picture online yesterday of what it looks like right now. They've been restoring the bulkheads and walls back to how it originally looked, and I mean it's not much to talk about. I mean, because the drawing room, what they did to it after it came to Long Beach was they cut holes in one of the walls so that way there was easy access to... There's little shop windows on the outside of the shop facing into the main hall. And those windows, they used to have products in them for passengers to walk by, and you would kind of go like, oh, this purse looks really nice, and you'd find someone, an attendant, who was manning that window, and from the front side they would open the window and let you handle the product, and then you could order it and have it shipped to your home or whatnot. But the wall that divides those shop windows and divides the drawing room, those were opened up in a few areas. I think to allow better access, maybe to allow views into the drawing room, because the drawing room became a gift shop at one point. But they've sealed up those openings back to how it used to be in the days when the Queen Mary was sailing. So they've sealed that up, that's for sure. They've also uncovered some of the windows, because some of the windows along the starboard promenade that face into the drawing room were covered over with a type of wrap that I don't know what's on the other side of the wrap. All I know is it's been covered over with a wrap. They've removed the wrap, so now it's back to windows. And they've also gotten rid of these. They had these really, what I would call tacky sailing ship wall sconces. So they have these wall sconces they're lamps, but they look like the kinds of lamps you'd find on the interiors of like an old three-masted sailing ship. It really didn't fit the Queen Mary, because the Queen Mary is Art Deco, and those lamps are like, mid-Victorian era. That's just not at all close. It's like 50 years before Queen Mary. So, they've removed those wall sconces, and they've removed the wall sconces, and they've overall just been clearing out the room. So the drawing room for sure, I think, will be one of the first places to open, and then maybe the synagogue next, if that's what they're currently... The synagogue, unfortunately, we can't see into it because the doors are always shut. So we actually don't know what's going on in there at the moment. It could be nothing. Maybe they have people working on the drawing room, and they can't work on anything else until the people in the drawing room are done. So that could be a factor, but honestly, we don't know, because the doors to the synagogue are always shut, so we can't see what's going on inside. Let's try to... I can't find where I was on the... There we go. Okay. Kat says, I just received a Queen Mary condenser bolt from eBay. One side of it is greenish, probably water damage. Trying to figure out how to restore it. Um, one side of it is greenish. Oh yeah, that could probably be from the water. Yeah, like a patina. Trying to figure out how to restore it. Honestly, I don't know because those those rivets are made of a lesser quality of steel than the rest of the ship. Because otherwise, I'd say, well, you could just sandblast it. I guess you can. I mean, it's still steel, nevertheless. It's just a slightly softer steel. But you could sandblast it and then, repaint it. Yeah, that's all I can think of. Kimmy Bear says, I'm wondering if you could talk about the Edmund Fitzgerald. That was a couple days ago. I do not know the first thing about the Edmund Fitzgerald. I do not know. Lachlan says, hey Alex, how long you been on? Just a few minutes, honestly. I started at, well, actually, let's see, it's 1:13 now, so I've been on almost 20 minutes. It's not long. Sarah says, wow, some serious shallow people out there. It's not like you're here to meet your mate. Exactly. But yeah, it's just really weird. Like, you'd think, like, why would people unsubscribe? And they unsubscribe sometimes right when the video begins. So you can see, like, where in the video they unsubscribe sometimes. If you're watching carefully, you can see where they unsubscribe. And sometimes it's at the beginning of the video. And I'm like, why? Just don't get it. Twain Collins says, that's craziness. I love your videos. Thank you. Kimmy Bear says, you're awesome. Love your looks and personality. Your laugh is so warm and hearty. Thank you so much. Arnaud says, you are the guy that you are. Don't take on you this. You're awesome. And you have a lot of people who like you. Yeah, I have no, I have no, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm a confident person. I don't have any insecurities, really. I have other insecurities that have nothing to do with YouTube. But when it comes to who I am as a person and what I look like and all that, I am confident in who I am, what I look like. I don't at all apologize for any bit of who I am or what I look like. So that's the one thing is like I don't have a problem with that. I know lots of people who, I think it's safe to say that most people in this world kind of wish they look a little bit different from how they currently look. And I mean, I guess, yeah, like it, there'd be some benefits to being like a fit guy who still looks young. I'm looking older by the day sometimes. But I don't linger on that thought because I just accept I'm like, this is what I look like. And I'm a busy person. I'm constantly working. It's not like I lay around all day on my bed and just, do nothing but gain weight. I'm a busy person. I got things to do. And I always have projects. I'm always working on something. One of my friends, it was kind of funny because he was talking about me to somebody and he said, oh yeah, Alex is the busiest guy I know. And I thought that's crazy because, my friend, he works like in an office in like a major company. And like you'd think any one of the hundreds of people he interacts with, on a weekly basis, you'd think that he would say, oh, that's the busiest person. But he says me, like I'm the busiest person he knows. So I take that with pride. I like that I always have things to do. I like that I always have projects I'm working on. So for me, like the way I look, the way I sound, sometimes even the way I speak really doesn't matter to me. What matters is, am I a good person? Am I keeping myself busy? Am I being positive? Those are the things that matter most to me. So, although I will be going on my European trip later next year, and I'm hoping to lose like 30 or 40 pounds for that. So that is like one of my goals, one of my New Year's resolutions, if you will, to lose at least like 30 or 40 pounds for when I go to Europe. Five Caps Film says, hey Alex, you ever heard of the Burlington Northern? I ask since you live in the Pacific Northwest. That's mainly where they operated at. Yes, I have heard of Burlington Northern. I'm very big into model railroads and stuff, and so I run across that name a lot. I don't know much about the Burlington Northern. Like, if you ask me like some questions about its history, I probably couldn't tell you anything, honestly. But yes, I have heard of the Burlington Northern. Nicholas says, hi Alex, have you been on the Queen Mary website to check out the new ship map? No, I didn't know there was a new ship map. I'll have to look that up. Sherry says, oh Alex, be easy on yourself. Love your videos. You're very interesting, and I learned a lot. Especially, I love Disneyland videos. Thanks, Sherry. Dino says, do you think Queen Mary will ever have a pool for guests? I think so. I think it's one of those things that the management thinks about, because, I mean, I don't understand why the Queen Mary needs to have a pool. Because, for instance, like, if I stay on the... Okay, maybe I should, preface this by saying, like, I'm biased against swimming pools. Like, I don't like swimming pools. I think they're pretty gross. I don't like the idea of swimming in the same water as a bunch of strangers, even though it is chlorinated. But, I don't even like swimming in the ocean, because the ocean's dirty. I used to take care of aquariums for, like, years and years and years. I had all kinds of aquariums, and they got so grimy and gross, and I'm like, this is what's in the ocean. This grime and this grossness is in the ocean, and there's dead, fish and things, dead bodies. Especially in Southern California, there's literally a toxic waste dump just outside of Long Beach, and it's out in the ocean, between Long Beach and Catalina. So I'm like, I don't want to swim in that water. It's a toxic waste dump. Anyway, but the point is, I don't understand why people would want the Queen Mary to have a swimming pool when there's literally really nice beaches right across the harbor. Like, right there. You could take I think they have a free shuttle bus that goes to that side of, the downtown side. I think it also stops at one of the beaches. You have that, you got Uber, $10 and you got an Uber ride to the other side of the harbor where they have the beaches. It's really not that far from Queen Mary. So it surprises me that people want a swimming pool on the ship or near the ship when there's really big, wide open, clean sand beaches nearby. I don't know why, but management is aware that people over the years have been asking for a swimming pool. They expect it. They expect a hotel in Southern California to have a swimming pool. And so it has been on many different concept arts that they've created over the years. The city of Long Beach and previous Queen Mary management, they've created all kinds of concept arts for how to redo the Queen Mary, how to redo the area around the Queen Mary, and it always includes a swimming pool. Not on the ship, but on the dock. Somewhere on the dock would be this whole swimming pool setup, fancy looking kind of thing. But they've just never built it. So, will it eventually have a swimming pool? I think yes. But I don't think it's high on their priorities, particularly because there's a beach right there. So, it's not far from the Queen Mary. It's just a quick Uber ride over to the beach. Let's see. Ozzy says, awesome job on the new video, Alex. Well done. Thank you so much, Ozzy. Yeah, for those that don't know, I just before the live stream, I posted a video about Disneyland's treehouse, which I think is really cool. Unfortunately, it's one of those subjects that I don't expect it to be very popular. So I made the video knowing that it probably won't get really any views at all. And from what I've seen on YouTube, it's not doing well. So I'm like, it's a treehouse. I don't think anybody's flocking to see that video. Let's see. Thank you, Arnaud. Arnaud was advertising the videos I did about the pools on the Queen Mary. Good afternoon, Oregonian rail fan. Ozzy says, when are they going to get the submarine out? I predict it will be around late 2026 or early 2027. At Last says, what do you think about the Poseidon Adventure movie? I really like that movie. I mean, it's a bit hokey in some areas, a bit cheesy in other areas, but I like it. Overall, I like the movie, the Poseidon Adventure. I kind of wish that they would do a more modern version. I mean, I know they did one in 2005 with Kurt Russell and all that, but I saw that movie when I was a kid, and even then I was like, this isn't a good movie. But I wish they'd do a more modern version, you know, and not make the same mistakes they did with the 2005 version. But the 1972 version, I like that. I like that version. I tried to watch it about a month ago with my dad, but he doesn't like that movie for some reason, so he doesn't want to watch it with me. Let's see. Sarah says, oh, Alex, I forgot to mention, I just went on the Empire Builder Amtrak from Seattle to Chicago and back. We got stuck in the last pass coming home and had to rob a passing freight train. What? For the extra engine. The Empire Builder Amtrak from Seattle to Chicago and back. We got stuck. Oh, in the last pass, like as in like a pass between mountains. Coming home and had to rob a passing freight train for its extra engine. Wow, that's crazy. Kat says, well, she's around those busy docks, not sure if those beaches are particularly clean. You know, to be totally honest, none of the beaches in Southern California are really that clean. I mean, they're clean in the sense that, like, the sand is usually very well raked every single day. They rake the sand through the night to get any, like, things that, you know, that get stuck in the sand. So Southern California takes really good care of its beaches in that way, but the water is not clean. Nowhere in Southern California is the water clean. It's really, really bad. It's some of the most... Southern California's beaches have some of the highest concentrations of fecal matter in the world in terms of beaches that tourists go to. I guess you can't say the same thing about, like, you know, I don't know. Back to the topic. Yeah, so Southern California's beaches have the highest concentration of fecal matter of any tourist beaches in the world, and that's particularly because there are at least 2 different wastewater sewage treatment plants that dump sewage into the water. Now, this is crazy because there's a conspiracy about this, right? So, wastewater sewage treatment plants, they're supposed to filter out the water, the sewage water enough that the water that comes out of the plant and gets dumped into the ocean is supposed to be safe. Not 100% safe for you to drink, but safe for the environment, right? It should be clear of any debris. It shouldn't be brown. It should be clear. Cloudy maybe, but clear. The thing is, though, is that I have personally witnessed one of those treatment plants literally dumping raw sewage into the water, because they have these outlet, what do you call them? Pipes. And sometimes that facility, this I'm specifically, you know what, maybe I shouldn't name a specific facility or else they might sue me. But there is a facility in Southern California that I have stood there and witnessed them dumping raw, untreated sewage into the ocean. And not just once. I've seen them do it many, many times. I used to live in the area, and I used to walk along where that sewage treatment plant was, and you would see them dumping millions of gallons of raw sewage into the ocean. And they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to filter the water, so it's at least somewhat clear. Again, albeit could be cloudy, but supposed to be clear. But this was raw sewage. And so that's one of the reasons why the Southern California beaches are some of the most putrid in the world. And it's not even just the sewage. Again, remember I said there was a toxic dump right between Long Beach and Catalina. So they have this huge area of ocean. I'd say it's the size of like the city of Anaheim. That's how big this area is. And for decades, toxic trash, like stuff with chemicals, stuff that is radioactive, things like that, used to be dumped in the ocean in these huge drums, these huge barrel drums. And they would just dump them in the ocean. And so there is a literal field of that stuff. And the problem is they can't clean it up because it's been down there for so long that if they agitated any of that stuff, the canisters, if they aren't already, rusted open, will be rusted open. And all of that toxic stuff will then just leach out into the water and be carried around by the currents. So they can't clean it up. And the other reason why they can't clean it up is because it's well over 500 feet down. So it could be anywhere from 500 to several thousand feet down, like, 2,000-3,000 feet down. So they can't even reach all those toxic materials. And like I said, even if they could, they don't want to risk agitating it because it'll just release into the water. So, and we know some of it has released into the water because they do these annual water testing checks of the water in Southern California to see like what's, that's how they know there's so much fecal matter in the water, is because they do the annual tests of the ocean water. And there's a lot of chemicals in there, and they suspect it's from that toxic dump. So, but they try not to publish that stuff because it would create like a panic. People would be like, "Oh, I can't believe I was just in the at the beach 2 days ago," and and they say, "Oh, but all these things are within the safe limits," but at least the fecal matter is not. Their tests for the fecal matters have always been over the safe limits, but they tell people that it's still safe because they got no other choice. They can't tell them that it's not safe, or else, heaven forbid, they might have to do something about that. So, just a little bit of conspiracy for you guys. Arnaud says, will they restore the Queen Mary's first-class squash court and gymnasium in the future? The squash court and gymnasium? I don't think so. Because that's way up on the top. Yeah, no, I don't think they will, because the squash court and gymnasium are way up on sun deck and sports deck. And they're in the middle of the ship. They are relatively close to the elevators. Yeah, they're relatively close to the elevators. It's not like it's a far walk. It's actually really close. But I don't see them doing it. It's one of those things where, again, you have to remember that the Queen Mary is also a business. It's not just a museum. It's also a business. And they want to restore things that will generate revenue. There's a few things they've restored that doesn't generate revenue. But usually those are small things, but like the The synagogue, I don't think will ever generate revenue. But the reason why they're willing to restore it is because it's a one-time cost, right? You restore it once, you never have to restore it again. And the other reason is because most all the stuff that was in the synagogue still exists. So they can just reinstall it, you know. I think the whole synagogue could probably be done for less than $5,000. Honestly, some people were estimating $2,000. So it's really not a heavy cost. And you pay it once, and you don't have to restore it ever again, unless they rip it out again. And I guess you could say that for the squash court and gymnasium, that could be a one-time cost, but it won't be cheap. That's for sure. Because none of the paneling that existed in those rooms still exists. It's all gone. And in fact, the area where the squash court and gymnasium were on the Queen Mary were converted back in the 90s into a restaurant, like a fast food pizza shop. And they, you know, for the longest time they called it the Hollywood Deli, because it was themed after the, you know, the Hollywood's golden age. But when I say themed after Hollywood's golden age, I don't mean it actually looked nice. It looked like a tacky, like, you know, this is all about Hollywood kind of place. And they sold pizza and, you know, and hoagie sandwiches and things like that. Yeah, so those rooms are basically gone. And they'd have to tear out what's currently there, which is all the equipment and kitchens from that abandoned restaurant. And then restore the bulkheads to create the squash court and gymnasium. And then panel those bulkheads with a similar paneling that used to be on them. So for the squash court, it was sycamore. That's what the whole room was paneled in, was sycamore. That's got to be expensive. So I don't see them doing it. I really don't. Yeah. And it's all the way up on sun deck. I mean, if people wanted to see it, they'd have to go out of their way. It's not like it's in an area of the ship where people might accidentally stumble upon it. No, you'd have to specifically be going to that specific area of the ship just to find it. Which, I'm not saying it's hard to find. I'm just saying that it's not in anybody's direction. They'd have to go out of their way. And so I think that in terms of business and profitability and all that, they want to restore things that are on people's current paths, you know. And the synagogue fits that because people go around that area all the time, especially on tours. Let's see. Kimmy Bear is leaving. See you later, Kimmy Bear. Jeffrey. Hey, Jeffrey. Excited to watch the treehouse video you posted today. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I hope you like it. Cynthia says, hi, Alex. It's a cozy rainy day here in SoCal. I have my coffee, knitting, and now some Queen Mary chat. Thanks for adding some charm to my day. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad I could help. Sarah says, thanks for the great info, Alex. I'm out to dementia support group for my mom. Take care, everyone. Take care, Sarah, and we're praying for your mother. I have had a grandmother that had dementia, so I know the pain. Kat says, hopefully the synagogue won't kill their B340 spooky marketing since it's right next door. Well, I mean, if you think about it, you know, you're right between heaven and hell. You got the synagogue on one side, and you got B340 on the other. You're right between heaven and hell. So, oh, man. Outbacker, wow, thank you so much for the donation. Hey, Alex, glad to hear your European trip will happen next year, and you're going to and coming from aboard the Queen Mary too. Can't wait for the videos you post on that. Thank you so much, Outbacker. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of videos. I hope they get some good views, but even if they don't, I'm still going to post them because I think it's going to be cool. But yeah, I picked up a passport application the other day, so I've got to fill that out, get my picture taken, go get an appointment for the passport, applying for the, get an appointment to apply for the passport. There we go. And then I think next week, yeah, Friday next week, I'm going to book the voyages aboard the Queen Mary 2. So yeah, Friday next week, I'm booking the voyages aboard the Queen Mary 2. They're having a special right now on some of the voyages throughout next year. It's like from now till December 8th, they're on sale. So I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna book that, now while they're on sale. So that was lucky. But yeah, I'm really excited for this this European trip, because we're gonna have a lot of time in Europe, like a lot of time, about 3 weeks, and so that gives me more time to do, well, first of all, to take things slower, because originally I thought our trip was only going to allow us 12 weeks in Europe. Or, sorry, not 12 weeks, 12 days in Europe. I thought that originally our trip was going to only allot us 12 days in Europe. And so I had this whole itinerary planned out for just 12 days, and it was chocked full of things because I want to make the most of this trip. Just like I did with New Orleans, I packed our days full of stuff to do because I have no idea when I'm ever going back. I can't treat this like a vacation necessarily. I can't just go, well, I'm going to spend the whole time relaxing. It's like, no, I'm going there to film stuff for YouTube. Like, I need to have a plan, So I had created this whole 12-day plan, and it was chock full of stuff. And now I'm like, oh, well, now instead of 12 days, I have more like 3 weeks. And so I'm like, well, that gives me time to actually take things a bit slower, because I was worried that like what happened in New Orleans was that I packed everything full of things to do, and we got to every one of those things except for like one thing. What was it? Oh, the plantations, because I didn't have enough money for the plantations. We would have had to rent a car, then pay to get into the plantations, and we didn't have the extra day for it either, because that's a whole day's worth of things to do. So I didn't have the day, so I didn't have the time or the money to do the plantations. But nevertheless, our schedule was so full that sometimes I felt like, wow, I never got a chance to relax in New Orleans and just kind of take things in. But I did, though. I did have one chance. It was the last day in New Orleans. Chris and Shiloh, they went to the World War II Museum. My dad was incredibly sick that day, so he stayed in the hotel room. And me, I stayed in the French Quarter to absorb the atmosphere and film some final locations that I needed to film, because I was running behind on that, actually. I didn't have all the locations I wanted on camera. And, oh, there was one location that I never found. I know where it is when I look at it on a map, but when I was actually in New Orleans, I could not find it. It was the old Absinthe House. I wanted to video that because that has an interesting architecture and an interesting story, but I never found it, which is weird because I can find it on Google, but I can't find it in real life. It was really weird. But yeah, so I was worried, like, what if this European trip is just like the New Orleans trip where it's chocked full of things to do, but then I don't get to enjoy it, So the fact that we have 3 weeks in Europe allows me to have the time to take a moment and relax at each stop along the way. And we have so much time on our hands, I'm thinking about adding another location to the trip, because the current plan is to visit England, Scotland, and France. And I'm kind of like, we have time for another country. Should we do Wales? Should we do Belgium? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to decide. Like, Wales would be cool, but Chris just went to Wales, I think, earlier this year, and he might not want to go back. I don't know. Not that he loved Wales. He loved Wales. If there's any Welsh people here, he loved Wales. It's just that he was already just there. So I don't know if he would want to do Wales again, or if he would want to maybe do Belgium or Germany. I'm going to be totally... like, I've been practicing my French, right? Don't ask me to do it, because I'm still not that good. But I've been practicing my French just in case I ever need to speak it while we're there. Because we will be in France for about a week. So there might be a time in all of our travels around France that I might need to speak French. So I've been practicing for that, but if I have to practice for German, I mean, just forget it. I can't do it. I can say ja. I can't say much else. I can say ja and danke. So, yeah. So I'm excited for this trip. I really am. Arnaud says, because on a podcast you suggested to create extra cabins on Sundeck's level, in that way the gym and squash could be nice, but yes, I understand that's expensive. Yeah, okay, so in that context, then, yeah, if they did put back in the cabins on Sundeck, which used to be there, but they were all ripped out to make way for public areas and museum space. But if they did put back the cabins up there, which would have wonderful views of Long Beach, by the way, because Sundeck is the highest indoor deck you can be in, where you can put cabins. So it would look out over the water beautifully. But yeah, if they did put back the cabins, then I could see them doing the gymnasium and squash court, because it would be right there next to the cabins. People would be able to visit it. It wouldn't be necessarily out of the way. It might be on the way to people's rooms, so I could see that happening if they did that, yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry. In that context, yes, I can see that happening, yeah. Cynthia says, yes, top-notch cozy vibes over here. That's kind of the hope, Nice, cozy vibes for this live stream. Just be able to chat with people and stuff, so I like doing these live streams. I just don't like cleaning up after them, because it takes an hour. It takes an hour to set up for a tea time live stream, and then it takes an hour to take it all down and clean it up, because, usually I have to do all these dishes and stuff. So, yeah, and all the equipment that's set up, I have to take it all down and put it away. Oh, man. Leonardo says, are there any spaces you'd want restored without limitations on the Queen Mary? Ooh, that is a good question. Are there any spaces you'd want restored without limits on the Queen Mary? Without limits. Because first I have to think about what's gone, and then to think about, there is a space. Yeah, I can think of one space already. But is there any other spaces? Okay, so... so there's a lot of spaces on the Queen Mary that could easily be restored to how they used to look, because it mostly still looks that way. For instance, the second-class library on M deck is no longer used except as a storage room. But all the cabinets and everything that was in the room is, well, besides the table, is still there. And they have the original Madonna of Tall Ships that used to be in the library. They also have a painting. They still have the Catholic altar that used to be in the library. So they could restore the second-class library to how it looked in under $2,000. That's how fast and cheap it would be. But I'm not putting that as my no limits thing to answer your question, because technically there already are no limits to that, because it's all still there. So what I will say is, what I'd like to see them restore without limits is the original first-class children's playroom. Because that playroom, first of all, there were a lot of custom features in there. The other playrooms, the second class and the third class playrooms for the children, those had like simple wallpaper. I mean, yeah, it would require getting a painter to come out and paint the images back on wallpaper and all that. There would be some expenses, tied to restoring those rooms. But the first class children's playroom would be the most expensive to restore because it wasn't just paintings. It had a slide, or as the British called it, a chute. It was the chute that Cunard called the Princess Slide because Queen Elizabeth II, when she was merely just 10-year-old Princess Elizabeth, had gone down the slide with her sister Margaret. They were the first children to play on that slide. They were the first children to play in that room, period. Queen Elizabeth II. So I would love to see the first class children's playroom restored without limitations, because there were some amazing features in there. And one of the things that they'd have to replicate would be the original light fixture on the ceiling. It was a combination sun and moon, and it was very well sculpted in silver bronze, and there were like twinkling stars in the star field around it. It was a beautiful light fixture. I think it's completely gone by now. Completely gone. Just Cunard destroyed it when they moved, because they moved the children's playroom after the war. They moved it to the other side of the ship. And the music room, just near the observation bar, the music room after World War II was the children's playroom. So that's why it's paneled today. It's paneled in wood and all that. But the original children's playroom was removed, and I forget what went in there. I want to say it was a coffee shop. But yeah, anyway, that would be my thing. I would want them to restore the first class children's playroom because, first of all, it'd be like one of the most expensive things they could do, but also it would be very rewarding because it was a beautiful room. I mean, it was designed for kids, but it was a beautiful room, and it was very custom made. There were lots of there were caves that the kids could crawl around in. There was a little like house that the kids could sit in and play house, and then there was like basically kind of like a jungle gym in there up on the second level. And yeah, there was a second level inside. So I think that would be really cool. So, okay, let's get back to questions. Diamond says, last week when I was on the Queen Mary, the first class drawing room has some of the windows open on the promenade side, and they do not have any furniture in the room. Yes, I was actually just talking about that maybe about 30 minutes ago. That, yeah, they've done... So I know it looks like there's nothing done in the room, but actually they did a lot. There was... The windows were covered, as you probably already knew. There was openings on the opposite wall. There was openings that looked out into the main hall, which shouldn't have been there. Those openings were done after the ship came to Long Beach. So they sealed those openings up with a white wall, just as it would have been a long time ago. And then they took out some of the tacky sailing ship style wall sconces that were on the walls. There's a possibility they could be bringing back the recessed cove lighting that was around the room, because they did that for the main hall. They replaced the cove lighting in the main hall with an LED strip. They could do the same thing with the one in the drawing room. So I'm hoping they do that. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. I hope the drawing room opens soon, honestly, because we need another space on the ship that looks as it did in the 1930s. Five Caps Film says, the Grand Salon is the most beautiful room on Queen Mary. I have to remember, the Grand Salon. I believe that would be the first class dining room. Yeah. The Grand Salon. Yeah, the first class dining room. That is a beautiful space on the Queen Mary. I do like that room. I really do. But I would say that, in my opinion, the current best room on the ship would be the first class main lounge, what they call the Queen's Salon. That one I think is like what I would consider the prettiest room on the ship. And it unfortunately looks very shabby because it's been through a lot over the years. And they're doing what they can to restore it, but it's going to take a lot of work. Ozzy says, it's raining again here. Treehouse is the Tarzan house. Yep. Pete Jones says, hi Alex. Were there any couples, widows, widowers who lived on the Queen Mary? Not crew members, but passengers. 2 were Barbara Mueller in QE2 and Clara Macbeth in Caronia. So the idea of living on a ship, like a passenger living on a ship, really didn't come until like the 1980s, honestly. People didn't want to live on ships. And I don't think the passenger ships wanted people to live on them. So there were no people that lived on the Queen Mary aside from crew. So yeah, there was no one. And the idea of living on a ship really didn't come about until the 1980s. And Barbara Mueller, she was like the pioneer of the idea of living on a ship. I kind of admire that. You know, I could literally go and live on a ship right now, and it would be cheaper than paying for this apartment, honestly. Yeah, I've looked into it, actually. Am I gonna do it? No. I don't think I want to live on a cruise ship, and frankly, it would make my life a lot more complicated if I did. But I was looking at it, I'm like, actually, I pay more for my lifestyle right here than I do for living on a cruise ship, like one of those crazy people. So I'm kind of like, man, I'm missing out on something, you know? Yeah. And I don't think there's anyone living on the Queen Mary too. Yeah. And it's funny, you know what? I will say there was someone living on the Queen Mary, the original Queen Mary. But this was during the pandemic. The previous management company, Urban Commons, one of their chief employees, one of their executives, during the pandemic went to live on the Queen Mary with his dog. And you know, the thing about that, you know, like, okay, he went to live on the Queen Mary, okay, no big deal. But the dog, I'm like, I get that, you know, like, okay. If you stay in the Queen Mary Hotel, I heard that you can actually bring your dog with you. And in fact, I saw a dog on the Queen Mary. It wasn't a service dog. It was just this little poodle thing, tiny little poodle. And I realized that, you know, I think I was talking to Shiloh. I turned to Shiloh. I'm like, people can have their dogs here? He goes, yeah, people can have their dogs. I was like, that's crazy, you know? Because the reason why is there's nowhere for the dog to go out, you know, to go potty. You have to take the dog down the elevators and all the way out to ground level. And, you know, that can take several minutes. And, you know, I wonder, like, how many dogs understand that they have to leave the ship before they can let loose, you know? Like my sister has a dog, and if I brought her onto the Queen Mary, and if she wanted to go out and go potty, I don't think she would wait till we got to the dock. Because as soon as we left our cabin, she'd think we were outside. You know, we're not in the living quarters now. We're in the public area. And so I don't imagine that very many dogs would hold it long enough to go out and down to the dock. So that's why I'm kind of like, I hope the dogs that, you know, first of all, the guy that had the dog that was living on the ship during the pandemic, I hope his dog wasn't like pooping and peeing everywhere. And secondly, the people that bring their dogs to the Queen Mary to stay with them overnight, like, I hope that those dogs aren't pooping and peeing in the rooms too. So I thought that was so weird. It was different when the Queen Mary was sailing on the ocean because the dogs were kept in a kennel. The hotel does not currently have a dog kennel. But the dogs, when the ship was sailing, they would stay in the dog kennel. And then the bellboys would come up every day several times to walk the dogs along the upper outdoor decks. Those decks, you can pee and poop on them, or the dogs can, not humans. But the dogs can pee and poop on them because you could just wash off the floor, and it's fine. But inside the ship, no, not really, because there's carpets everywhere. So, yeah. Cynthia says, can't wait to see your Queen Mary 2 and Europe content. What wonderful experience. I know, it's going to be like the experience of a lifetime for me. I'm so excited. Arnaud says, you're lucky. I'm French. If you need help, I can help. Yeah. Yeah. I think mainly like what I need is like someone to speak French to, but my schedule doesn't permit it. Because I thought about it. I'm like, what if I found someone that spoke French and then I could just like call them up sometime and have French conversations? But then I realized like I'm not available during everybody's normal times of day, and I have the most random availability, so I wouldn't be able to just call somebody. Like even I have a friend, my friend Rob. I haven't spoken to him in weeks because I can't find the time, honestly. So, yeah. Rena says, French people will appreciate you trying, but a lot of them can speak English if communication is becoming a struggle. Yeah, I heard that. But, I mean, we're going to be going to some places that are a bit more rural than Paris and stuff like that. So I figure that there's, in the week that we're spending in France, I figure that there's probably going to be, at least one or two French people who might not be able to speak English. Or don't want to, because my friend Chris, he's been to France many times, and he says the same thing. He's like, oh, most of them can speak English. He says, but some of them don't want to, and he says, and they won't talk to you in English, even though they understand you. And so, but we really won't see that until we get to the more rural areas of France that we might pass through. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about, is I might need to know some French for when I get to the areas or the random experiences where I might have to speak French. But also, it's better, too, to be able to read French so I can read all the signs and make sure I know where we're going. But yeah. Hi, Rena. Five Cats Film says, Alex, remember the scam on St. Anne Hotel? Yeah. That was such a scam, dude. So when I went to stay in New Orleans, for those that don't know, I actually have a video about this. It's my very first video of my stay in New Orleans. It's a vlog. But I could have easily gotten, like, a nice hotel outside the French Quarter. Any one of the major hotel chains. But I don't want to stay in modern buildings, right? Like, I want to stay in historic places because I love history. I want to, just for a moment, pretend like I'm experiencing history. And that's one of the reasons why, like, if I go to Southern California, I want to stay on the Queen Mary. I don't want to go stay in, like, a Motel 6 or something. Like, I want to stay on the Queen Mary. And when I went to New Orleans, I was like, I want to stay in an old building. I want to stay in a building that is like 200 years old, at least. We ended up staying in a building that was about 250 years old, which was really cool. It was the oldest building I've ever stayed overnight in. And problem was that the hotel itself was kind of a scam. In, like, many ways. The employees were really nice. I will say that first and foremost. The employees were so sweet and so nice. And even one of the employees was going out of her way to try to make things right. But the hotel itself, the business, was a scam. I mean, we didn't even have hot water. It was cold water. Literally cold water. So we were taking cold showers and and washing our hands in cold water, and trying to shave with cold water. Oh my gosh. Something told me before I left for that trip to bring my electric trimmer for my face. But I thought, no. I want to have a nice clean shave, so I'm going to bring my razor. So I only brought my razor. And it turned out we only had cold water in the hotel room. And I would have to shave with that cold water, and then my face broke out in like clogged pores. It broke out in like clogged pores, like little pimples everywhere, because I shaved with cold water. I irritated my skin, and it was just really bad. And then there was just a bunch of other stuff, like this. I speak clearly, Alex. I paid a lot of money for their suite. They have these 2 suites, and the suite that I paid for it was advertised to have 3 beds, because I was going to stay in that suite with my father and with my friend Chris, the one who's going with me to Europe. And I was going to let Chris have his bed, and I was going to let my dad have his own bed, and I was going to have my own bed, right? And when we got there was only 2 beds. The third bed, which was seen in the pictures on the website, was actually not there. And we asked the person at the front desk, like, where's the third bed? And they said, oh, we haven't had a third bed in there for a while. We're like, but it shows on your website. He goes, I know. I'm like, but that's why we booked the room, was because it had 3 beds. And he's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, okay, well, do you have one of, like, a lot of hotels have like roll-out beds and stuff that they can bring out from their storage room and set up. They didn't have one. And honestly, I think even if they did, they couldn't get it up those stairs, because it was a townhouse we were staying in, and the stairs were so narrow, I could barely squeeze through them myself. So I don't think we could have hauled a mattress up there, honestly. So I was like, okay, just give me a bunch of blankets and pillows, and I can make myself a bed on the floor, right? They're like, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have extra blankets and pillows. I'm like, you're a hotel. How do you not have extra blankets and pillows? They're just like, I'm sorry, we don't have any. The guy didn't even bother to look. He just says, I'm sorry, we don't have any. And he was being very nice about it, but I'm like, you're not going to check? Like, I guess maybe he just had it memorized, but it turned out to not be true, because just seconds later, this other guy, a maintenance guy, walks through the building, and he goes, oh, no, we do. And he opens the storage room right next to us, and he starts pulling down these extra pillows, and he only had 1 extra blanket, but he did have 2 extra pillows. And he gave me that. And so I made a bed on the floor, but I had like no cushion, because I had the 1 pillow for me, and I had the 1 pillow for Chris, because his bed didn't come with a pillow. It was a fold-out bed from a couch, which we knew that the fold-out bed was there, but we thought that they would supply him with the pillows and blanket for that bed, and they didn't. So, like, I had to share whatever the maintenance guy could give me of pillows and blankets with Chris. So I had to give Chris a pillow and a blanket, and I got a pillow and a blanket, and I was the one sleeping on the floor. And Chris was like, well, Alex, you can sleep on the bed, and I'll take the floor. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm the one that insisted we got this suite, so I have to I have to I made my bed, now I have to sleep in it, because Chris didn't want that suite. He wanted a different room, and so I was the one that really wanted that suite. And so I was like, no, I've got to live with this, because I'm the one that wanted this room. But nevertheless, I was pretty upset about it, and I'm not me and my dad, we're not the kind of family that sleeps in the same bed together. We're just not. We need our space, and so there was no way I was going to stay in the room with my dad and sleep in his bed. So I was like, I'm just going to sleep on this floor. And I slept on the floor that whole week. The whole week. My back was messed up by the end of the week. I was in so much pain, but, I was the one that really wanted that hotel, Everybody else was like, no, just stay at a modern hotel. I'm like, no, I want to stay in a historic hotel. And then, so I tried to, get some of my money back from that hotel, because, obviously, they didn't deliver on what they advertised, right? They advertised 3 beds, there was only 2. And they advertised hot water and there was only cold water and they couldn't fix it. And so the lady, the next day, she was like, yeah, we'll get you, like a partial refund and all that. And I was like, okay, that's fair, But then they didn't refund me at all. Yeah, I was pretty upset. So, don't stay at the Inn on St. Anne in New Orleans. Yeah. Let's see here. Five Caps Film says, in the Queen Mary, towards the entrance of the Grand Salon, they removed the walls that covered the funnel shaft. I wish they would restore that, but I don't think they will. Yeah, I wish they would restore it too, but yeah, I don't think they will because they like all the extra, square footage because they sell that area as a separate room. And so the more square footage they have, the better for them because they can make more money off of it. So I don't see them putting it back, but... Rena says, what if you took a subscriber vote for the 5th country you want to visit? That's a good question. Unfortunately, the people who answer those posts, like if I have to put that as a post on my YouTube page. Unfortunately, the people that actually look at those posts aren't even my subscribers. Like the majority of them are random people on YouTube who are scrolling down their browse features and then my post randomly shows up to advertise my channel. So most of those people aren't even my subscribers. So I don't know. Yeah. Dutchliner says, hey Alex, in the Netherlands there is also the SS Rotterdam Museum and Hotel. Basically everybody speaks near perfect English. I thought about the Netherlands because one of the places I thought, well, what if I go to the Netherlands and then we can go to like Amsterdam because there's lots of really cool stuff in Amsterdam. I'd have to look up where they keep the Rotterdam. But, yeah. Do they keep the Rotterdam near Amsterdam? I don't know. But it'd be cool if they did, because that would give me more reason to go to Amsterdam. Cynthia says, what part of the country are you in? I'm in Oregon. I'm in northern Oregon. Cat L says, I wish they sold art reproductions of the Madonna of the Atlantic. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? I'd like that. Five Cast Films, yeah, I know all about the Pan Pacific Auditorium. Arnaud says, for me, one room I want them to restore without limitation is the third-class smoking room at what it looked like with the art on display. That'd be pretty cool. Cat L says, I wish they would restore the floor in the observation bar. They will. They will. That's on the list of things to restore. So they will. Lachlan says, how is the weather today? Here in Sydney, Australia, it's cloudy, high of 25 degrees. Having tea and chocolate McVitie's for breakfast. Probably not the best breakfast, but it tastes good. Weather here is pretty good. It's probably around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very nice and cool, nice and cold. Just the way I like it. It's cloudy too, because I don't like the sunlight. I don't like sunlight. So it's nice and cloudy today. I love it. Good weather for today. Arnaud says, before coming to the live, I got a question. I make research, but no any answer. Do we have pictures of the boiler uptakes or the lower funnels in the shipyard or when they removed them in 1969? Those specific pictures, no. I've never seen them before. The other thing, too, is in some areas, the lower uptakes were kept in place, but they are just heavily torn apart. But yeah, I've never seen pictures of the uptakes just sitting in the yard in Long Beach. I've never seen pictures of that. I think partially because they were cut into such tiny little pieces that you probably wouldn't immediately recognize them from the currently existing pictures. But I'm pretty sure they're somewhere in the background of the existing pictures. They have to be. They're just cut up into tiny little pieces. Let's see. Yeah, or not. Yeah, I did a video about the dog kennels on Queen Mary. I'm probably gonna have to redo it because I think it's an interesting topic, but almost no one saw that video, so. Ozzy says, does your phone have an app speaking French? Yes, I got 2 apps that I use for learning French. So first one is Duolingo, so I learn a little bit of French from there. But then I also have another app called Speak. And Speak is a bit better than Duolingo, actually. They have actual like video of people who teach French. And then they use an AI that you talk to in French. And I like that because with Duolingo, it's entirely AI, and it doesn't even sound that good. Like, sometimes they mispronounce words simply because the AI can't enunciate that particular sound, for instance. So, like, a lot of their S's sound like F sounds, or their F sounds sound like S's. And so, like, it really... It's really hard to learn from Duolingo sometimes because they do these practices where they don't reveal the word. You have to listen for it. And sometimes I can't understand what they're saying. You know, especially like there's a lot of like I'm at the very basic level of practice. So they sometimes say things like fizz, right, which is like depending on the context, could be the plural word for sun. Yeah, so like sons, you know, like boys, like sons. Or it could be the plural for daughters. So it's just like really weird because you can't tell the difference between feels and feels, you know. It's just like, what? So Duolingo can be really frustrating. But thankfully I have the other app, Speak, and that one uses actual human recordings, and they're very good. And I'm like, okay, I understand French a little bit better now because there's humans actually talking. And then the AI that they use for the Speak app also is just better at pronouncing French than Duolingo is. So... yeah. Rena says, I watch French with Alexa videos to teach myself French. I don't know if that's a solution for you. I've seen a couple of those, yes. They're very useful. M1 Best says, have you ever thought to write a book about the Queen Mary? The wiki is so comprehensive, but my wife and I would love to have a physical book about it, or your experience researching thoughts on it. I don't plan to make a book about the Queen Mary, firstly because there's hundreds of them, and mine would just get lost in a sea of books, honestly. What I know is that when it comes to the Queen Mary, there's only one other comprehensive website besides mine, and that's the Sterling website. And the Sterling website is really good, but a lot of the website hasn't been updated since I think 1997. Because that's when they just decided not to update it anymore. They decided to preserve it as is. And so that website is still up and running, but it hasn't been updated since 1997. And a lot of the information is either outdated or even the images on it are really tiny little images designed for old computers to see. And so I wanted a newer website that was really comprehensive, that did two things that the old website couldn't do. One, could be constantly updated for the latest information, especially if something turns out to be like an untrue statement, it could be corrected, right? And then the other thing too is that we wanted a website that could be, it could have sources cited. So that way people didn't just have to take our word for it. They could see that there are citations for everything. So that way they could see where we got our information. It's getting kind of warm in here, actually. I'm going to take this off. It's getting kind of warm. So, yeah. And what we accomplished with the RMS Kim Wiki site, I really love it. And whatever, I'll just leave that on the floor. Because I can't, it's stuck to a cord. What was I going to say? Book. So I don't want to do a book because it would just get lost in the crowd of books. There's hundreds of books on the Queen Mary. So many books, in fact, that many of them are actually just getting lost with time. Like, this one here, I think, is one of the best books out there about the Queen Mary. It's called RMS Queen Mary, Queen of the Queens by William J. Duncan. This one is often forgotten about. I mean, not many people know about this book. Except for the really die-hard fans who've been around for decades, they probably know about this book. But all the newer fans, no one talks about it. No one references it. And it's one of the greatest resources about the Queen Mary there is. I don't think I could do much better than this, honestly. This book is really, really good. And it's not easily available because obviously they don't print it anymore. So I did a recording, an audio version of it. So I recorded an audio book version of that book on my YouTube channel. So that way people could, you know, they could still at least understand what's in the book, because it's a great book, and I don't think I can do much better than that. It's really good. Yeah. And the other reason why I don't want to do a book is because if I did do a book, I'd want to do a coffee table book. But there's already a really good coffee table book out there. And I'm in it, by the way. I was interviewed by the author David Ellery to do just a quick little segment at the very end of this book. But this is RMS Queen Mary, the world's favorite liner. This is the best coffee table book about the Queen Mary that you can find. I don't say that because I'm in it. I say it because it's actually really good. It has a lot of pictures. I just dropped my phone. It has a lot of pictures of the Queen Mary, but besides that, there's a lot of like deep information in the paragraphs about the Queen Mary, and there's really highly detailed schematic drawings of the Queen Mary. This is a really good coffee table book. And I mean, I've seen a few of them. This one's the best coffee table book, honestly. So, yeah, that's RMS Queen Mary, the world's favorite liner by David Ellery. And I'm at the very end. I'm in like page 240 or something like that. And I just talk about what it's like for the younger audiences who are just starting to get interested in Queen Mary and why it's important that they do. So, yeah. Oh, I dropped my phone. Okay. So, but yeah, like I was saying, if I did do a book, I'd want to do a coffee table book. I don't think I could do much better than what David Ellery did. And the other thing, too, is I don't own any original pictures of the Queen Mary. So I'd have to license all the images of the Queen Mary that is used in any book I make. And doing all that licensing, that's got to be expensive. David Ellery had to do a lot of licensing for his book. So yeah. That's why I don't want to do a book. Alright, so... Wait, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read this. Lachlan says, I thought you didn't like coffee, Alex. Yeah, I didn't, but I guess I don't have a good explanation for you. I don't have a good excuse. I'm drinking coffee again because my dad drinks coffee every day. And my dad, he's been injured. He has a concussion. And so he's been staying at home for several months while he gets treatment and stuff. And so he used to make coffee for himself on the weekends, or like I would make coffee for him on the weekends or whatever. But since he's here every day now, I have to make coffee every day. And I can't resist the smell of coffee. It smells so good. And it's not that I didn't like coffee. It's more like I didn't like drinking coffee because at the end of the day, I feel like really like weird. I feel real, and I still do, drinking this coffee. I still do. But I can't resist. Every day I have to make coffee, and it smells so good when it's fresh. And I pour myself a cup of coffee. So I'm a total hypocrite because, yeah, I did say I don't really drink coffee. And then soon after that, I started drinking coffee every single day. So now I'm back to coffee. Yeah. And the irony that the coffee took over my tea time, because I didn't even make tea today. I made coffee. So, yeah, that's the irony of it. I'm a hypocrite, and that's, yeah, I can't deny that. Kat says, my birthday is around Thanksgiving, and every year the Queen Mary Hotel is closed on that day. Really? It's closed on Thanksgiving? I didn't know that. That surprises me, actually. That really surprises me. I wouldn't have known that. That's crazy. Cat 5 Caps Film says, I wish the Queen Mary would get a carpet for the corridors that would match the pattern of the tiles they had, the deck names, but that would be far too expensive. Yeah, it would be. But I do wish they would replace the carpeting along the corridors of the hotel, because all that carpeting is from like the 1990s, and it's so old and worn out, and it's been eaten by carpet mites. So during the pandemic, the Queen Mary got an infestation of carpet mites. And because there was only one person on the ship during the pandemic, remember I told you the guy that lived on the ship? He was the only person on the ship. And the ship was empty because it was the pandemic, So they got an infestation of carpet mites that were eating the carpets along the corridors. And the one guy couldn't keep up with it. I don't think he even tried, to be totally honest. I don't think he tried at all. But so if you walk along the corridors and it looks like there's just these patches of white, people have said, oh, that looks like water damage. It's not. It's the result of carpet mites. And so they've been trying to replace the carpets along the corridors, but carpets are extremely expensive nowadays. And so they replaced some of the carpets, but the majority of them are all still in place because they can't afford to replace them. So it's really sad. It's really sad. I hope they get the money soon, because the city of Long Beach is supposed to give the Queen Mary a big chunk of money very soon to start work on a lot of refurbishment projects in anticipation of the 2028 Olympics. There has to be a lot of things on the ship that are repaired in time for the Olympics. And I think one of those things is that the city of Long Beach wants the ship to have new carpets all over the ship, new carpets. And so I'm hoping they give them the money soon to do that, because the ship really needs it, and the hotel rooms, every one of the rooms in the Queen Mary that you can stay in, they need new carpets. They're so old and worn out. But if you can imagine, there are millions of square feet that need replacement carpets. It's not going to be cheap. So Pete Jones says the cold water at the hotel motel in New Orleans might have been a cost-cutting measure. Yeah, probably. I wouldn't doubt it. Lachlan says, what are your plans for this week and ahead? Much one. Any new trips planned you want to do now or in the future? The New Orlando. So, in the weeks ahead, I am preparing for Thanksgiving and stuff. I'm hosting that at my house. I'm going to have friends and family over for that. Videos are planned, just as normal. I don't have anything special planned for the channel for quite a while. I do want to go back to the Queen Mary around May of next year, but I don't know if that's happening because right now all my money is being put towards the European trip because I have to start booking all the stuff now. And literally every last bit of money I have left, besides what I pay for the expenses of this house and all that, everything besides the expenses of this house and lifestyle is going towards the European trip. And so at the moment I don't have the budget for going anywhere besides that, and that's all being booked for late next year. So after summer next year is when I'm going to Europe. And but yeah, I would like to go back to the Queen Mary around May of next year if I have the money, because it's been, it's been too long. I went last May, and now I'm dying to go back, so I really want to go back. But we'll see how that goes. We'll see. I think someone else asked me a question, but I didn't see it. This chair is so uncomfortable. Arnaud, there we go. Except crew areas, are there some spaces we don't have any idea of what it looked like? Oh, there are a lot of spaces that we don't know what they looked like, because some areas of the ship were just never photographed. For instance, trying to think of an area. So basically, a lot of the rooms along the sea deck crew corridor called Burma Road, a lot of the rooms along that corridor, we don't know what they looked like. There's no pictures of a lot of them. A lot of them are storage rooms, so they're storage rooms for food and for supplies and stuff. We don't know what they look like because there was no need to take a picture of them, So that's one of the frustrating things, is I don't know what that looked like. There's a lot of mess halls along that deck, along sea deck. There's mess halls for all kinds of crew. I don't know what those mess halls looked like because there's no pictures of them. So, I'm sure there probably somewhere exists a photograph of each room aboard the Queen Mary, because I imagine that at some point someone had to document it. But if there are pictures that exist of every single space aboard the Queen Mary, it would probably be in like an archive somewhere in Scotland, honestly. It would probably be in an archive somewhere in Scotland. But I simply don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of spaces on Queen Mary. I mean, countless, literally countless, that we don't know what it looked like. Like, for instance, we know that there was a crew bar called the Pig and Whistle, and we know that the crew kind of sat outside the bar, and there is pictures of where the crew were sitting to enjoy their drinks. But the actual bar, the actual Pig and Whistle, was just a countertop with like a bar area behind it and all that. We don't know what that looks like because no one has pictures of it. There probably is a picture, and it's probably in an archive somewhere, but no one has it. So we don't know what that looks like. So yeah, there are countless places on the Queen Mary that we simply don't know what it looked like because the pictures are not available. So there's so much mystery about the Queen Mary yet to be uncovered. M1 Best says, I'll have to check out both your recording and the coffee table book. Thank you for keeping the sources alive as time goes on. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, that's literally what I want to do is, you know, part of the reason why I have the wiki, RMS QM wiki, is because there's a lot of information about the Queen Mary that's out there, but not many people know where to find it. You know, like, one of the things that I often talk about, like, the Queen Mary is a direct result. No, not a result. During World War II, the fact that the Allies won the first battle at El Alamein can be directly attributed to the Queen Mary. The Queen Mary is the ship, the one and only ship, that brought the 10,000 plus troops and the supplies necessary to defeat the Axis forces during the first battle at El Alamein. Now, you look at any book about El Alamein and the battle, and it simply says that troops and supplies were delivered in time to take back the battle. They don't credit the Queen Mary for that, because the Queen Mary was the one that brought those troops and supplies. And so I was able to find a source online that directly attributed the Queen Mary for that. In fact, this book was the first source to credit the Queen Mary for that specific win. And so it's hard to find that information, and people would just forget it if it wasn't for the wiki that I created to help keep those facts alive. Because it's amazing, there's a lot of World War II buffs out there, and I've talked to them and I've said, oh, you know, like, so, you know about the first battle of El Alamein? They go, yeah. And I'm like, you know, like, what ship brought those supplies? They go, oh, it's just probably some of the warships or something. I'm like, no, it was one ship. It was the Queen Mary. So she was rerouted because she was doing her back and forth across the Atlantic, I think. And they said, look, we need these supplies at El Alamein right now. So they sent her all the way through. And the crazy thing was like, they sent her past the Strait of Gibraltar, which was really crazy because they had to do it stealthily. They couldn't announce it, or else any one of the submarines, the Axis forces, the submarines and their various navy that were just floating around the Mediterranean would have come after the Queen Mary. So they couldn't even tell the British who were standing guard at Gibraltar. They couldn't tell them the Queen Mary was coming through. They did recognize the Queen Mary, though, and they knew that she was a British ship, so they didn't, try to fire at her or anything like that. But they did see her, and they mentioned, we see you over there, But that's one of those cool things where I'm like, wow. And, like, it's that there's only 2 places where I found sources that mentioned the Queen Mary did that. Everyone else has forgotten it with time. And so that's one of the reasons why I made RMS QM Wiki, is because I really wanted to preserve details like that would otherwise get forgotten. We're also trying to put together some pages on crew experiences. So, like, we have only one crew member, a former crew member of the ship, who was able to write down their story for us, and we put it on the website. We wanted more, but we can't get the old former crew members to talk to us. It's really weird. Like, there are a lot of former Queen Mary crew members who are on Facebook, and they share some of their stories on Facebook in posts and whatnot. But then when I go to reply to them and ask them, would you like to write your story for the website, we don't get a response back from any of them. And it's really frustrating because we know they like to share their stories. They do it all the time. They talk to people actively on Facebook, but they won't respond to us. So it's frustrating because I really want to get their stories down before they're all gone, So, by the way, folks, if you know anybody who was a former crew on Queen Mary back when the ship either peacetime or war, whatever. If you know somebody who has a story, please direct them our way, because we would love to document that, and it will be on the website for as long as I'm alive. So, yeah, because those stories need to be documented, and they're fading fast. They're fading fast. Let's see. Arnaud says, could you do a live stream of you working on RMS Q and Wiki in the future? It's also one of my favorite websites. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did one before, couple months back, but I think people thought it was boring, because they would come into the live stream and they'd leave immediately. So, I haven't done one since, because I didn't think people wanted to see it. So, I don't know. I might do it again, but again, I don't think people want to see me working on the website, Arnaud says, are there any news about the Veranda nightclub in their plans? They've mentioned they want to turn it into a nightclub, and there's been some rumor that work is currently underway to make that happen, but I have not seen any solid evidence yet. But we know they want to, and again, there's also rumor that they've been working on that, so, yeah. Five Caps Film says, what is the most original room on the Queen Mary? What is the most original room on the Queen Mary? Mean little to nothing has been changed. Little to nothing has been changed. The main hall. Yeah, because... yeah, the main hall. I mean, I would say, the various lounges and stuff, but they did get their carpets replaced, and their furniture is no longer in those rooms, and the furniture is what kind of makes up the look of the room. The main hall is the only one that really didn't have too much furniture to begin with, and it still looks as it did in 1947, so it technically is like one of the most original rooms on the ship. It hasn't been changed much. But I mean, there is a lot of rooms that still look like they did. It's just that they don't have their original furniture. So it depends on, like, how much change is too much change, if you know what I mean. Otherwise, I'd say, like, the main lounge, the first-class main restaurant, the smoking room, all that stuff, that's pretty original. Pretty original. So, there's a lot of original spaces on the ship. They just don't have their original furniture. Also for the Queen Mary, noticed in the first class smoking room, they turned the doors into panic doors, as well as other doors, I guess, for safety. They turned the doors into panic doors? I'm not sure what you mean. I'm not... if you could clarify. Evan Scott says the crow's nest looks nice with the new paint. It really does. I like the way the crow's nest looks now. It looks so well taken care of. Cat L says they should reuse the name Pig and Whistle at least. They actually do. The hotel cafeteria for the crew is called the Pig and Whistle. Arnaud says RMS Queen Mary had 31 years of travel and 56 years of standing in Long Beach. The ship is rich in history. It certainly is. Hi, Jacqueline. Arnaud says captain's quarters for the original 1967 rooms. What? Oh, right, yes. The captain's quarters, well... if my friend Shiloh was here, he would disagree. He says that the captain's quarters and all that in the front there, they've actually been heavily altered. Like, where the captain's bed is, it was never originally there. Which he's right, it was never originally there. It was actually in a part of the room that doesn't exist anymore. those rooms have been heavily altered in order to make the remnants look nice and fit. So I actually wouldn't say the captain's quarters is original. It's got original props and things, like, well, I wouldn't even say props. They're real chairs, real tables, real lamps, all that kind of stuff. But it's been heavily altered because of the fact that they tore out so much on that level. Yeah. Heavily altered. Evan Scott says, what's going on with the Long Gallery project? Well, we discussed it a little bit ago, but basically, like, it's going slow. We don't know when they're going to start. We don't know when it's going to be completed. Right now, they're just working on the drawing room. So I imagine once the drawing room is done, they're probably going to start work on either the Long Gallery or the synagogue. So it's going to go one project at a time, and it probably won't happen fast. We're probably looking at the Long Gallery. We're probably looking at a project that may take 6 months to a year, honestly. I don't expect it to go quickly. So, Five Caps Films says, during the war, did they remove some of Queen Mary's interiors, like paneling or artwork or anything like that? After the war, they did replace that because I could swear I heard that somewhere. So, from my understanding, they removed a lot of the furniture and artwork and stuff. They covered up a lot of the stuff they could not move. So, like, there's artworks that, you know, like the unicorns in battle and all that kind of stuff, that they couldn't move. They just couldn't take it off the ship. So they had to cover it up with protective sheets of leather. But as far as I understand, I don't think there was any wood paneling removed from the ship. And then, what was the other part of your question? And then they replaced some things after the war. So, like, in the main hall, there was chestnut wood paneling all around the room. They removed the majority of it to install the pigskin hide panels that are on the walls today. And that happened after the war. They did that because they wanted to brighten up the room, because the room was quite dark before. And also it helped to decrease the echo of sound, because you would walk through the room and all that wood paneling would reflect the echoes of conversation and walking along the floors and stuff like that. And so the pigskin hide panels are much better at reducing the noise echo. So that's why they replaced all that wood. Ability to Page says, I am late for the live stream. You are almost at 100,000 subs. I know, I'm so close. I'm trying to reach 100,000 by the end of the year. I'm trying. So we'll see. We'll get there. Also, poor panic door are the doors that have a bar that you push to open the door that also have vertical bars as well. Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably due to some California laws about public doors, that they have to have those push bars. Because I opened a cafe once, and I do remember reading that it is California law to have those bars on all doors that people go in and out of, like, in a public place. So yeah, it's probably California law, actually. The door of the bedroom isn't there where him lavatory was on. What? The door of the bedroom isn't where him lavatory was on. I'm sorry, Arnaud, I don't understand what you're asking. Kat says, Nicole Strickland is an author, mostly paranormal, of the Queen Mary books. She frequently visits the ship. She might know former passengers and crew. Yeah, I know of Nicole Strickland. She wants to meet me, so I want to meet her too. I'm never at the ship when she is, but she's told Shiloh many times, like, oh, I want to meet Alex the historian and stuff, and I tell him too, I'm like, yeah, I want to meet Nicole, you know, but I'm never at the ship when she's there, so it just hasn't happened. Arnaud. Yeah, that's true. Podcast Swim says the map in the Grand Salon is absolutely beautiful. I agree, it really is. Well, folks, I'm going to get going from this live stream now because this chair is uncomfortable and sitting in it for a couple hours really is painful. But also I have a lot to do, so I have to get going. But anyway, folks, it was really nice to do this tea time stream, even though I didn't actually drink any tea. I didn't even finish my coffee either. But yeah, it was really nice. Be sure to check out my Alex the Railroader YouTube channel for updates about my model railroad and about just train stuff in general. And then here I'm going to start working on some on a Queen Mary video in the coming weeks. Right now I have to kind of boost my viewership numbers because the videos I've been posting lately have not been performing very well, so I have to try to post a very popular video sometime this month to make that work. It's all a game of trying to get things working and yeah. But yeah, so it was really good to talk to all of you again because I rarely get to socialize anymore. Anad says, it was a great live. I want to help the Queen Mary, but I don't know how to act. Yeah, it's hard to help the ship right now. I mean, you can donate towards the ship, and but other than that, there isn't really much else to do. All right, folks, thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye, everyone.